PC gamers are crashing out. They're upset. They're seething because Nintendo is taking measures to prevent people from playing pirated games on Nintendo Switch 2. So you can't emulate Switch 2 games. You can't hack your Switch 2. You can't mod it to play games with like the MTG cards or whatever. All these people seriously thought they were going to get their consoles and like hack it immediately. And here we are, Nintendo just bricking them, online. That's kind of interesting to kind of see how this is developed because these people are so open about what they do. It's very possible at this point, considering like the internet and how this stuff is like interconnected with like how you have to like connect to the internet to like update the initial day one patches and stuff like that. Like it seems as if Nintendo's now in a position where like every time someone like tries like doing something like this, they try pirating a game, they can just like, oops, time to brick that console, time to shut down that guy's account, time to send the cops after him, time to prosecute, like there's just so many things they can do with as they continue expanding their anti-piracy measures. And it is glorious to see. And you're seeing a lot of people crashing out about this because they know that without piracy, they have like no justification at all. Their giant cope that they don't need Nintendo consoles to play Nintendo games has completely blown up in their face. This is why they're like, trying to act as if like NSO isn't a big deal because like, well, I can just emulate that, completely not understanding the fact that like a game being older doesn't stop it being piracy, and it's very interesting to see like the continued like coping and seething about this, even like going so far as to say it's unethical, anti-consumer, I should say, to brick pirated like Nintendo consoles or like modded. It's amazing to see. Like, the PC Master Race is running scared because I think this is a very good example of just what the collapse of PC gaming is going to look like, where the PC gamers, instead of playing games on their platforms, are spending all of their time, like, seething about Nintendo hardware. Seething about the game, seething about, like, Bonanza, seething about, like, what Nintendo was doing, about the Power World lawsuit, like doing everything except actually playing games on PC, Like, I've already seen people, like, make videos about DK Bonanza trying to damage control it. Like, like, oh, I don't know if it's out yet. Like, huh? Like, it's just downright absurd seeing how many people are desperately trying to do everything they possibly can to downplay Nintendo, to hate Nintendo, to despise Nintendo, to do everything they can to, like, continue this farce that Nintendo Switch 2 is not successful. Like, I've seen all sorts of copes. This idea that, like, sales are going to taper off, or that third-party sales aren't doing well, or that, like, the hardware is faulty. None of which is true, but these are all narratives and conspiracies that are, like, going along through PC gaming circles, Like, this is the giant cope that they have to try and justify, like, PC gaming being the most popular platform on the market, which is of course ridiculous. It makes no sense because of course PC and console gaming coexist, like one or the other doing well doesn't really diminish the success of the other, but like good luck getting PC gamers to realize that like PC gaming existing is not a threat to Nintendo consoles at all, because anybody who owns a PC can also own a Nintendo console. It's not some complicated thing. Just not like how mobile didn't kill Nintendo, like PC gaming isn't going to kill Nintendo. They are going to coexist because they're all completely different and offer different experiences for different people. But that's not the way that, like, the PC community, like, sees it. They think that they'll be able to continue getting away with pirating Nintendo games indefinitely. That, like, every time that, like, Nintendo releases, like, a game that they have to play, like Zelda or Mario or whatever, like, that they could just pirate it. But, like, that is already becoming like ludicrously difficult to do. It's already becoming like more and more like challenging to pull off. And what's more, and I think this is the more important thing, like it's beginning to have a bit of a stigma to it. Like that's the thing about this, because like obviously, if you like this stuff, you want to give Nintendo money so you can get more of it. This idea that like, well, I get it for free, like you're not supporting the developer. So like, good luck like getting new games if you're like pirating everything all the time. But the PC gaming community, they don't care about that. They just cope and seethe and just like make excuses as to why they have to pirate and why they can't buy legit. And it's just resulted in like this circle jerk that just like that seems to like try that seems to try and like justify the piracy of like every Nintendo game that comes out. Because like every single time they try to say the game like doesn't run well or doesn't look good, or that like Nintendo's doing something unethical and that's why they have to pirate things. Like you see this all the time, everywhere, and it people are beginning to notice like the patterns. Specifically how these people don't really know all that much about Nintendo or its characters or its brand. Like every single time these guys have come out and like try and say something about say the intermission tracks in Mario Kart World, right? Like, oh man, like the intermission tracks are so boring. They're straight lines. Like, first of all, like anybody who plays the game will tell you that's not true. But second of all, like those of us who like have played older games will realize that like aren't the highway tracks in Mario Kart World like the same thing as like Mount Wario in Mario Kart 8, which coincidentally was one of the most popular stages in that game. Like this idea that like, you have to go around a circle 3 times in order to have a real Mario Kart track. Like it has no merit, like historically. Like it's just something that people tried to make into a controversy with this game and just kind of like imploded, as people like, played it and realized that like it was a complete non-issue. And this is like just the common pattern when it comes to like PC gaming discourse, like 2 years ago, right, with Baldur's Gate 3, or like, before that with Elden Ring, the narrative was like, oh, these games are way better than anything that's ever going to come out on Nintendo hardware. And then like, Tears of the Kingdom has outperformed Elden Ring now, and Elden Ring is coming to Nintendo Switch 2 anyway. So like again, all that hype, all that publicity, all that worship for Elden Ring just completely imploded. Even if it was better than Tears of the Kingdom, it is not. It's coming to Nintendo Switch 2 anyway. So like it's not like some weapon you can use against Nintendo. Like Baldur's Gate 3, in spite of all the hype behind it, hasn't had the same kind of cultural impact that that people thought it would. It's only popular with like 30 to 40-year-old like butterball women children, right? Like that's the Baldur's Gate 3 audience. It just doesn't really have an appeal among like actual gamers, and that's the core issue with the PC, Nintendo, and mobile market, is that like Nintendo has a specific audience that has no interest in migrating to PC, no interest in migrating to mobile, and as a result of that, the consoles will remain successful indefinitely. They're constantly going to be pulling more people in. People are going to be trying their games and becoming fans, and like you're just not going to be able to downplay these games like you could back in the 90s. And I do think that's like the big takeaway from this. Seeing what's happened to Fire Emblem Engage, Tears of the Kingdom, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder in particular. Like these were 3 of like the most wildly hated Nintendo games I've seen in years, and in a matter of like 2 years, not only have their reputations skyrocketed, you're also seeing like sales continue to go up because these games will always be available digitally. Like people will be able to pick them up, whatever. People will be willing to try them or whatever. Like the narrative that these games are bad is simply not going to stick because it's not really true. Like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is probably like the defining example of this. One of the most wildly hated like Pokemon games ever. I'm seeing more and more people like acknowledge that, like, yeah, this is one of my favorite generations, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But like, the more I play the game, the more I realize just how special and interesting it actually is. I love Gen 9, and I've always been an advocate for it. But for the longest time, we've been told that like the game is broken and glitchy, and there'll never be an update for it, bro. And guess what? It's here and it's glorious. So yeah, with that all being said, it does need to be emphasized more in the community. It does need to be said more in the community. Like what the PC Master Race says, what the online gaming community says, it has no bearing on the success of Nintendo consoles. And I think this fact will become more apparent over time.